We're going to continue now with the remainder of the homeostasis topic here from Chapter 1. And we're going to pick up here and we're going to talk about a concept called negative feedback that you're going to hear a lot about as you proceed through your physiology classes. All right, so we've already talked about how the various things that the body has to control in order to maintain a stable internal environment. Those things tend to fluctuate up and down. All right, and the idea is that you're trying to maintain some sort of relatively constant average there in the middle. So this concept by which, as something is going upward and then your body detects that change, control signals are sent to a control center. The control center sends responses to effectors like we talked about on the last video clip, and then that corrects the problem going too high there on the fluctuation. That is called negative feedback, when you reverse a trend in something. And then is whatever it is we're thinking about drops down too low, the body corrects it by sending it back upward. So again, that's still negative feedback because you're reversing what was happening previously. In contrast, positive feedback would be something where as it's happening, it just keeps happening more and more and more and more until it reaches completion. An example of positive feedback would be something like the uterine contractions that take place during childbirth. Those just keep getting more and more and more and more intense until finally you pop the baby out. Lots of things in the body are regulated by negative feedback. Things like body temperature, which we've been discussing, even the volume of your blood is largely controlled by a hormone called ADH that you'll learn about when you take Biology 202. So nervous system is often involved in the control. The endocrine system is involved in control when chemical hormones are the main feature that are causing the negative feedback response that's occurring. Okay, come on here. All right, so let's say we've been talking about body temperature quite a bit as one of the things that the body has to maintain as part of homeostasis. And so let's take a look at another example here. Okay, so let's take a minute to look at body temperature control, the homeostatic control mechanism involved with that. All right, so we got a little seesaw here, and we're trying to maintain a stable internal body temperature, which, as you guys know, should be about 98.6 Fahrenheit. In reality, your body is constantly going up above that a little bit, and then it'll go down a little bit below it, and it fluctuates back and forth. Okay. So let's say your body temperature is going up. It's becoming elevated. Okay, that increase in body temperature would be called your stimulus that's taking place. You do have receptors that detect that stimulus. Those are actually nerves whose job it is to detect those changes in body temperature, and they're located in your skin, and then some of them are in your brain. And so when they detect that higher body temperature, they send signals through afferent pathways along your nerves to your brain. There's an area in the brain that's near the pituitary gland, which is the control center for body temperature. And so you have, that section of the brain takes in this information about the increased body temperature and decides, hey, we've got to correct this. So it sends signals also out through nerves. That's going to be an outgoing efferent pathway to the effectors that are going to help correct your increasing body temperature. And when your body temperature gets too high, the main effectors are your sweat glands. So they'll start producing sweat, and that gets released onto the surface of your skin, and as it evaporates, it helps cool your body temperature. Another thing that happens is the blood vessels, your superficial blood vessels, near the surface of the skin dilate so that more of your blood flows to the surface of your skin. That's why you look red and flushed, because you've got increased blood flow to the skin, and that also helps release some of your body heat to lower your temperature. All right, now on the other end, let's say our imbalance is going down, like we see over here. That's the stimulus. Our body temperature is falling. Those receptors, those specialized nerves whose job it is to detect that lower temperature, will do that. They'll send signals to that area of the brain that controls body temperature. The control center makes the correct decision, sends outgoing signals to the effectors. And in this case, main effectors are your skeletal muscles. Skeletal muscles, that's another term for the muscles you use for movement. So all the things that you know of as muscles are technically called skeletal muscles. And your skeletal muscles will begin contracting. When they contract, that generates heat as part of that. You almost like how your car engine generates heat while it's functioning. Your muscles generate heat when they're functioning and contracting. And so that's when you experience shivering. Now when you're shivering and you know you're shivering, that means your body temperature has dropped pretty far below its normal homeostatic range. And so you're shivering to try to generate a lot of body heat to bring it back up closer to 98.6 Fahrenheit. But you may have shivering going on inside your body and your muscles at very low levels, generating some body heat, and you don't even realize that's going on. That's probably going on off and on throughout the day to help you maintain your body temperature within a normal homeostatic range. Okay, so then you return to a balanced level, and then those receptors keep monitoring for any changes in either direction to help maintain your body temperature. So that's an example of negative feedback where you have an up and down fluctuation. Another example of negative feedback, regulation of your blood volume by ADH. ADH is a hormone that stands for anti-diuretic hormone. If you've ever heard of a diuretic before, or a diuretic drug, you know somebody who takes a diuretic. That is, a diuretic makes you urinate more. Okay, so an anti-diuretic is going to make you urinate less. So what this hormone does is it cuts down on the volume of your urine that you're peeing out of the body. And so the less fluid, the less water you're losing in your urine, more of it is being kept in your blood and in your tissues. And so that keeps your blood volume up higher. So you actually do have nerves that function as receptors to detect lowered blood volume, and when that happens, you have a area in the brain called the hypothalamus. The hypothalamus is actually the part of the brain that also controls your body temperature. It controls lots of things, as you'll learn in the future. But so there is an area in that part of the brain called the hypothalamus that secretes this hormone called ADH, and ADH then tells the kidneys, hey, don't release so much water in the urine, keep it in the blood and the rest of the body fluids to keep our blood volume back up. And so by doing that, you are reversing a trend of lower blood volume. You're bringing your blood volume back upward, and so that is also an example of negative feedback. Now, if your blood volume is too high, if you think about the fluctuation, the hypothalamus doesn't release as much ADH, or it doesn't release ADH. And so because of that, then your kidneys release more water in the urine. You pee more water out, and that'll actually help you lower your blood volume when that happens. And, I know I was just saying the hypothalamus produces the ADH hormone. It does. It gets secreted out of a part of the pituitary gland, because your hypothalamus and your pituitary gland are connected to each other, and you'll learn more about that little connection next semester. Okay, example of positive feedback. I've already mentioned that labor contractions of the uterus when a woman is going to deliver a baby, that's an example of a positive feedback response, because you have minor contractions that start off at first, and then those minor contractions are detected by nerves in the wall of the uterus, and they send signals to the brain. The brain releases oxytocin, a hormone that travels through the blood down to the uterus and tells the uterus to contract even more. And the stronger contractions cause more and more signals to be sent to the brain. The brain secretes oxytocin hormone chemicals that travel back to the uterus and cause even more powerful contractions. And so you just keep contracting stronger and stronger and stronger and stronger until you finally squirt out the baby. So that's an example of positive feedback. It keeps increasing until some process is finished. Another process is blood clotting. That's another example of positive feedback. So when you're bleeding, you have torn at least some very small blood vessels in your skin or wherever you're bleeding from. And when you have those rips, blood is coming out. So you've got to clot that blood. You've got to stop that from happening. And so you have these little cell fragments in your blood called platelets that are important for helping to clot your blood and get that process started. And so what they do is platelets, when you have a tear in a blood vessel like this, they stick to that tear. So a few of them do, and at first, and then they release chemicals. These little green dots here are supposed to be chemical signals that they're releasing, and those chemical signals attract more platelets, and then those platelets release chemicals to attract even more and more and more and more until eventually you have what's called a platelet plug there sealing off of that tear. And then around that a blood clot will form to more permanently seal off that tear until it can be repaired. And so you keep doing that until you formed a blood clot, and then it stops. And that is another example of positive feedback. All right. Throughout your A&P classes, you're going to hear this phrase used a lot: homeostatic imbalance. Homeostatic imbalances will be discussed for every body system. And what a homeostatic imbalance is you are no longer able to maintain some aspect of your homeostasis, or one or more. And when that happens, you're at increased risk of having poor health. If your health is being impacted in a negative way, you have some sort of disease. Diseases can be caused by germs, or they can be caused by nasty chemicals you get exposed to in the environment. They can be caused by defective organs, damaged organs. Something is out of whack and preventing you from maintaining normal aspects of your homeostasis, such as if you had high blood pressure. That's a very common problem in the United States. That's a type of homeostatic imbalance. You're no longer able to maintain your blood pressure in a normal homeostatic range. Diabetes, you can't maintain your blood sugar levels within a normal homeostatic range. As we get older and older, as we age, your ability to maintain homeostasis gets worse and worse. Eventually, that can lead to destructive positive feedback type mechanisms taking over, which you'll learn about examples of those as you move through these courses. And one of those examples is heart failure. So eventually you can no longer maintain homeostasis and you die. Okay, so that's the last physiology topic for Chapter 1. Again, you do have physiology topics for Chapters 2 and 3 here in the Unit 1 part of the course. And then all of the topics you see here, these are also in Chapter 1 in your book. These will be covered on the anatomy side, because these are more about the parts of the body and regions of the body, more so than how the body is functioning. So all of those will be in the anatomy folder. And please work on the anatomy and the physiology simultaneously for each unit, because if you try to do one and then do the other, things are not going to make quite as much sense. You really need to try to, just as if you were taking a traditional class in anatomy and physiology where you were meeting an instructor face-to-face in a classroom, each week you would do both anatomy and physiology. They would be blended together. So you want to try to reproduce that as much as you can here in the distance version of the course. All right, thank you very much, and please don't hesitate to let me know if you have any questions about any of these topics here in Unit 1.